Welcome to So You Want to Start a Business podcast. I am your host, Ingrid Thompson. This show is brought to you by the business book with exactly the same name as the podcast, So You Want to Start a Business, available wherever you like to buy your books. The book is the only advertising on this podcast, so no pesky interruptions. And pretty much every day, someone somewhere in the world buys a copy. Thank you if that's you and you have bought a copy for yourself, for a friend, a family member, or even for a colleague. To find your copy of So You Want to Start a Business, head to your local independent bookseller. We love the independents, or wherever you buy your books online. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. And if you are new to this podcast, hello and welcome. I know there are so many podcasts out there to choose from, so I thank you so much for being here, for spending your precious time with me and my guests. Business, and especially the financial side of business, has become overcomplicated, and I aim to simplify it. My business is Healthy Numbers, and I'm on a mission to help business owners understand how money works in their business, because I believe everyone deserves to be financially savvy when it comes to understanding how money works in business and in life. And if you're interested to check out your level of financial savvy, head over to healthynumbers.com.au/health check, HEALTHCHECK, and you'll find 15 simple yes/no questions to assess your financial savvy, and you'll get a personalized report at the end of it. So, who's our guest today? We are here today with Candice Berlanger, who talks about making the move from being a hairstylist to growing a Feng Shui consultancy. Maybe you're like me and you've heard of Feng Shui, but would you know what a Feng Shui consultant would do? Well, we're here to find out from Candice in this fascinating conversation about all things feedback, pricing, Feng Shui, and much more. Candice is stubborn, friendly, and honest with us as she talks about what she wishes she'd known and her lessons learned. Are you ready? Let's go.
Hello, and here we are today with Candice Berlanger. How are you, Candice? Welcome.
I'm good. How are you doing today?
Fabulous, thank you. Now, Candice, where are you right now?
So I'm in a small town called Lubbock, Texas. It's actually pretty close to the New Mexico border, so pretty far west Texas.
Oh, right. I've just finished reading American Dirt, which is about people moving, that kind of whole, not refugee, but that's sort of the escaping from Mexico. And it looked like they came across a really rugged part where it was mountains and cold and pretty. Is that what your territory is like? Is it pretty mountainous? And
Not at all. I actually live on the plains, and so it's flat and dusty. And that's about what we get. Flat and dusty.
There we go.
Yeah.
And is that home? Have you always lived there?
No, I'm originally actually from Arizona. My dad was in the Air Force, so we moved around a lot, but this is a place I've called home for over 20 years. My dad retired, and we ended up here. My mom's from, not from Lubbock, but from the West Texas area.
So this is home for your generations.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so let's get into business, Candice. What is your business? Because it's a fabulous one.
Oh, thank you. So I'm a Feng Shui consultant. And I think where a lot of other Feng Shui consultants, they kind of focus on kind of what goes into the space. The Feng Shui I practice, it focuses more on the way the space feels and actually supports you. And I actually practice and focus on Feng Shui for businesses.
Wow. Could you just explain to some people who might be listening and wondering just exactly what is Feng Shui?
Yes. I'm so glad you asked. So I think the easiest way I actually explain it is just by asking people, have you ever rearranged your room and you were able to sleep better, or you've rearranged your furniture and the room just felt different? There was just a better flow to it. That has more to do with Feng Shui than the decor and everything. It's more about the way the space feels and using some of the different energies within your home. So.
That's fascinating, because we have a mirror in our dining room, and at the weekend I said, you know what, I'm going to move this mirror over here, And I cannot believe the difference it's made to the room. And I said, it's fascinating how that has made like this one piece of furniture. And I hadn't thought of it the way you just said. I just thought it was because that piece of furniture is now not work, because it was a big mirror and it was sitting against the wall. And it feels like it created more space there. But what you've said just makes so much sense, is it actually changes the energy in the room. And mirrors especially.
Yes. I don't particularly work with mirrors, but there are some consultants that use mirrors to like open up spaces and add to a space. It's kind of hard to explain. If there's a wall where they feel a space should be, they'll maybe use a mirror to correct and stuff like that. But yeah.
This was just so I could see myself when I walk out the door.
Yeah.
It was sitting behind a chair, and I thought, well, that's a bit dumb. I'll move it over here so I can see myself. But it just feels like it's opened that part where the table and chairs are. Anyway, enough about me and my lounge, my dining room. Back to you and your business. So you help Feng Shui consultant for people in business. So it's a business environment that you're working with rather than the home environment. So when did you get started doing this?
So I started my certification in 2017. I actually was looking for a Feng Shui consultant to come look at my home, and I couldn't find one in my area. And so the woman we found, she was actually offering a certification. So I started, and I got certified in 2018. And so just probably since 2018, I've been trying to work on my business and, really focus on getting it going.
So why did you start a business like this? What drew you to having a business?
Because I've worked in an environment where I've gotten paid hourly. I actually, in my former life, was a hairstylist. And if you know anything about, people that do hair, they're standing up all day, and it wears on your body, And actually, I still have my license, actually. I really loved it. But having that freedom, to not have to work an hourly job and to be able to go to my kids, the games, or be able to go to their lunches at school, or, just the things that mom, take the day off if they're sick, without having to worry about missing out on work, and I think when my daughter got old enough, she's 11. And so I just thought you also get to feeling like you want to do something for yourself as a person, not just as a mom and a, wife anymore. Their kids are big enough to take care of themselves. So, why
and
not?
They still want you around at that age to some degree, don't they? They still need you around. I remember my mum said that as teenagers, there was none of what there is today in the world for teenagers when I was a teenager. But my mum said that as teenagers, she felt like we needed her around more, not hovering, but just present. So yeah, your daughter there is getting to an age where just being around is handy, because then you keep track of what's going on, don't you? And a hairdressing appointment, if someone makes a hairdressing appointment, they actually want to have that, don't they? And you're really more working to someone else's time zone, whereas when you do business consulting to businesses, you're much more freedom to allocate timing the way you want.
Yes.
So this is sort of the same question. So what did you want the business to give you from day one? What did you want from it?
I think the same thing, just the freedom, the freedom to be able to be with the kids and, and
I figured you kind of answered the question. I just wanted to see if there was anything else. All right. So so you've actually been in business as a hairdresser, a hairstylist. With this business, was there a moment when it actually felt real and that you were actually in business? One of those sort of pinch me, this is real moments.
Yeah. So I really think it was because I actually was still doing hair part-time, even the past couple years, I was still doing hair just part-time. And I was filling in for one of my best friends she manages a salon. And I would come in and fill in every now and then. And I loved it. I really do. I love I feel like out of that, I get where I'm able to talk to people, and, you get out of the house and you're around other adults and all that. But when I had to tell her that I was too busy to do any work for her anymore, that's when I was like, I'm too busy to do something else. So That's when it became
that's
like,
a
this is
lovely
my
moment.
business.
Ooh, this
Yeah.
is my business. Lovely. That's such a lovely answer.
Yeah.
So how did you know that people wanted this? So it started off, you wanted it and you couldn't find anybody except this one person. So that meant you wanted it. But how did you know that other people wanted somebody to do Feng Shui for their offices and for their businesses?
I think so. The main reason was honestly because I wanted it and no one else around the area did it. Is really the main reason. I thought, well, this could be a thing, you know. But it is a little bit of a niche market, I will say. And when you're in a business that caters to a niche, you have to make yourself visible and heard. And, you know, just starting the DBA or the LLC and just putting up a Facebook page with your business or just starting the website doesn't cut any of that. You know, you're not actually being seen by people still, you know, and I think that's a big misconception. And so I started making a lot of content. And I think when people started kind of responding to the content and I started networking with other practitioners and, you know, and seeing that they're very busy and, you know, but just because you're in business doesn't mean you know how to do sales and marketing. And so I started a lot of content marketing and really informing people when you're in a niche market, you know, area, you have to inform people what you do and to try to make it like, hey, it's not so, you know, like a woo-woo thing. It's not even a spiritual or religious thing. It's really just the way you're using your space and, you know, so just informing people really.
Yeah, it's super important, isn't it? So viability. So you're getting paid to be a hairstylist. So there's money coming in from that. You know when you do this many days, you get this much money. How did you know this business was going to be viable? And here you can add in, you know, like how did you get some pricing going? Because it's such a strange sort of, it's a service and people, you know, trying to price services, it's always a bit tricky. How did you know that there was a financial viability and how did you set pricing? Could you talk to us about that, please?
I think that goes back into that you have to learn how to run a business. You know, just because you're like, again, just because you're in business doesn't mean you know how to run a business. And you have to make it viable for yourself. And with Feng Shui, there is adjustments you can make. There's long-term adjustments. So if somebody moves into a space, you know, then I would set up like a long-term placement of Feng Shui where they could permanently place certain things like their cash register and all that. So that's kind of a long-term placement, but yearly energies come in and change. And so maybe I need to like come in during the year and look at, you know, the beginning of the year. And I can look at and say like, maybe use this different door this year because there's a weird energy here, or let's, you know, adjust your desk for the year. So I think that goes with any type of business though, where you do follow up, you know, and of course referrals. And then there's things like adding service. I don't just do Feng Shui. I actually do like natal chart readings, and I do like I can do card readings and stuff, which I don't do a lot of, but I, you know, so you can expand outside of your field without getting away from it, you know, adding services to your business.
That's fascinating. So it's a really interesting way to approach the niche, and then so that's what actually introduces you to the client, and then you bring other services in afterwards, because sometimes it can look like we try to do all these things for these people, whereas just having a very clear idea of where your entry point is, and then it can expand. It's a really smart business model. Yeah, very smart.
Okay.
Is there a gadget sorry, I don't actually know very much about Feng Shui. I thought I knew more, but now that you're talking, when you go in and there's a bad energy near that doorway, how do you know that? Is there a measurement or a tool that you use for doing that?
Yes, there's actually a low pan, the Feng Shui low pan. I think a lot of people have probably seen it without realizing. It's a big square compass. But a lot of practitioners actually just use a compass, you know, so it really goes on the axis and the direction the business or home faces. And so from that facing direction, you're able to, it's almost like an energy map of a building, you know?
Wow.
And there's some different systems you can use, and but what I do with the yearly energies, really, there's just some astrology and some different stuff that move around every year and every month and even every day, but we don't focus too much on those. You could chase all the energies if you wanted to. But.
Yeah, because even just when we think about the moon, right now it's a full moon, and now then we go into the waning moon, and then there's no moon, and then is it waxing? Is that the right way around? Waxing and waning, and then there's the full moon. So there's a cycle of that, isn't there? And the energy, because we spend time at the beach, and you can feel the energy of the water when there's a full moon is different to when there's no moon. Is that so? And is that the sort of thing you're talking about that affects?
Yes.
In offices?
Yes. Most of the astrology terms and everything are really planetary alignments. They might sound weird, but they're really just planetary alignments.
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating. Okay, so funding, it sounds like you funded this by staying with your hairstyling, but were there any other things that you did to fund this business as you got started?
Yeah, so my husband he actually owns his own business, and so he's been a tremendous help in, helping me, like, hey, maybe we should do this or do that, and of course with funding, he's my funder. I would say, he's my biggest support, and he's always there to help me when I need, something as far as my business. He's always willing to help me out, of course, financially, because we started his business together, and and all that, but really a lot of it I just started doing free stuff, the free social media pages, the free site. And I will add, I think a lot of people go in and they want to do it all and buy all the video equipment, or they want to go big, they want to put a loan down on a business, or and all this stuff. But to just start with what you have at the time, even if you're not buying your domain name, put the website up, go to a free website builder, put the website up, and worry about the details later. So work with what you have instead of focusing on what you don't have.
Yeah, I love that. And it's amazing how many people either get into debt or, just overcommit, like you said, on stuff that really isn't that important at the beginning. Just get going. So new customers, how do you find customers? How do you know who they are? Where are they? Where are they hanging out?
Well, really, that kind of goes with the business model of our learning business. I will say I didn't know anything about analytics when I 2 years ago, but that's something where you start having to look at, and so either being able to hire somebody that can look at your analytics. But if you're just starting out and you don't have any customers, again, just the free stuff, doing the social media stuff, having people share your stuff, your friends and family share it, and creating a lot of content. That way people do actually know what you do, Yeah,
they get a sense of that. Lovely.
Yeah.
Exit strategy, probably a bit on the early days for that, but have you thought about where this goes? Sort of like begin with the end in mind, or even succession, what happens when it gets too much for just you?
I have, and I always hope my kids are interested in Feng Shui one day, because I would like to pass that knowledge on, but I'm not sure that'll be the case. But but as far as the exit strategy, honestly, me and my husband, he does real estate, and really just, probably investing in real estate and stuff like that would be probably a retirement strategy. And I actually have thought about that. I thought, what would I do with my business when I'm gone? You do think about that, would it be something that carried on, or is it something that just stops with you? You think about that.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you did say that you have an ongoing relationship with your clients. It's not just a one-off where you just go in the once and you do what you have to do, that you actually do have, you go back and you do follow up. So when we have a business that has that relationship with clients, it's what happens to that when it stops or it gets sold or it gets passed on to somebody else? How do we get that sort of continuity? It's just something to think about. We don't have to have the answers for it right now, but always important to have a thought about as we develop. You know, today there's so much talk about developing communities and bringing people together. So what happens to that community when the business no longer exists?
Yeah.
Reflection.
Maybe something
Candice.
else to think about.
Oh, well, that's what we're here to do, podcasts, and to help people think. So reflection, and I know we can't do this, but if you could take a magic wand and go back to 2018 to when you got started with this, is there anything you would do differently?
Oh yeah, I really would have learned about the business side of things, you know.
Okay.
I think seeing my husband do a lot of his business, you know, I see him do it, but of course I don't really know what goes into it. I don't do real estate, you know, and of course it's different than Feng Shui, but I really think I probably would have started putting content out sooner, you know, because again, you assume that because people, oh, they know I do Feng Shui, now they'll come to me, but they really, you know, they really want to know, they really need to know what it is you do, you know.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people say they wish they'd started X sooner, whether it's the business or the a podcast or you know, the content or whatever. Yes, that yeah. Just so I think the message to our listeners is, if you're thinking about it, just make a start. Yeah.
Just do it. Yeah.
Just get on with it.
Do
Yeah.
it.
So this is a slightly different question, but if somebody could have told you something at the beginning, what do you wish you'd known from the start?
I really wish I would have known, I think, what questions to ask. I actually, so talking about, you know, me helping business owners, I actually had a consultation done for myself for my business from one of the masters that I've taken his courses, and he's a master in Malaysia. And I had a consultation done for myself, and it was like a 2, you know, like a 2 for whatever price on it. And so I had 2 consultations. The first one, I knew nothing about what kind of questions to ask. And so it was just kind of like a tell me what you see type of thing, you know? And so I don't feel like I got a lot out of it. It was more kind of personal to me. But the next one, I had been doing research on, you know, businesses. I had been trying to learn about what it takes to run a business, what it takes for marketing, what sales are, you know, and just having him tell me to focus on like marketing and branding my name. And, you know, if I could have asked those questions sooner, I feel like it would have been more helpful to me, you know, so really knowing what questions to ask.
That's such a good point, because it taps into something called unconscious incompetence. And I don't know if you've ever seen, there's like a 4-step diagram, and unconscious incompetence is when we don't know what we don't know. And then when we start to find out what we don't know, we become consciously incompetent. So we can't do it, but we know we can't do it. And then we gradually learn, so we become consciously competent. And then almost a dangerous place is unconscious competence, because that's where we do things that you drive home and you think, did I go around that roundabout, or what about that stop sign? You know, and it's that I don't even know which way I drove home, because we're unconsciously so competent at doing what we do. So I love what you say, that when we get into something we've never done before, we are unconsciously incompetent, because we don't know what we don't know.
We just don't know.
Yeah. And
we
so
don't know.
The thing is, and that's what, you know, one of the reasons I have this podcast, and, you know, probably one of the reasons you have your podcast about Feng Shui, is that, you know, people don't know what they don't know about Feng Shui. So you have your education, your content. That's what you've been talking about the whole interview, is how important it is, because people don't realize how much they don't know until you start to tell them.
Yes.
I have to say, Candice, it's probably one of the best answers I've had to that. Not that there's good and bad answers, but that's, it's a very insightful answer to that question, that reflection question. Okay, has it been tough, difficult, challenging, whatever word you want to use? What makes it tough, and how do you get through it?
It's been all rainbows. No, I'm just kidding. It's not been all rainbows. No, yeah, it's hard. I mean, I think the toughest thing for a woman in business, especially if you're a mom and a wife, is that your personal life gets in the way. So the freedom that I wanted to be able to, be around my kids and do everything for them also actually can stop you also, because you have to stop and, well, I can't finish recording this podcast right now because I have to go, pick up my daughter from school, or let me take her to her appointment, or, my son wants a haircut. I mean, I still actually cut their hair.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah. And I mean, even just stopping to, working on my computer to have to get up and make dinner, or they get sick, I think it can be discouraging for, especially in the beginning, when you start your business, when you start trying to market and stuff like that. But again, if you don't know what you're really doing and you're not getting the customers, you don't even get one customer, you don't get any calls, you do get discouraged because you just feel like maybe I should just give up, maybe I shouldn't do this anymore. Maybe I should just try something else, but so it gets discouraging. But
how do you get past discouragement?
I listen to a lot of motivational videos. I listen to, like the big ones, like the Tony Robbins, the Les Brown, the Jim Rohn, anything that I can listen to that helps me feel like I can do this and I cannot give up, because I really have to accomplish something, or I have to, accomplish what I have in mind. I listen to those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any women motivational that you listen to? You just mentioned a couple of the men there.
Oh, Oprah.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yes, I listen to Oprah.
The goddess of, the queen of goddesses, or whatever. Goddess
the queen
of
the world. Yes.
Yeah, she's pretty amazing, isn't she? And just continues to be. And when you think where she started, just her, I've recently read her biography, and just it's so inspiring, and she continues to be inspiring. So yeah. And I think go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I just remembered another one. It's a little bit more, I would say, more like esoteric, but the, what is her name? The one that channels the entities called, Abraham Hicks. Yeah. Yeah. I think I may have lost your audio. Oh, there it goes.
Esther and Abraham Hicks. Yeah. Pretty amazing. So I have a friend who's actually been on one of their cruises. Amazing experience. They actually run a cruise. Yeah. So I think that could be quite fun one day. Maybe we'll get all our podcast listeners to come on one of those with us.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so we can't do everything ourselves. Do you have anyone on your team? Do you have assistants? Do you outsource things?
I do outsource stuff, and I've tried things like Fiverr and Upworks, and I have a gentleman that he was kind of in the same position I was with, trying to start a business and everything, and so I actually have him ongoing as kind of a consultant every week, and we have a phone call, and he helps me with a lot of things like the video and formatting and some things like that, marketing. So he's been a tremendous help. And of course I have, my family is a big supporter, and they'll do whatever I ask them to do. So they really are great, So.
Yeah, it's so important, isn't it? Now, you mentioned that your husband he's not quite a mentor coach, but it sounds like he is as well as a husband, because he's in business. And you spoke about your guru in, is it in Indonesia? the Feng
in
Shui master
Malaysia.
in Malaysia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So have you had coaches or mentors in the business, and what sort of role have they played?
As far as my business, probably just my gentleman from Upworks. His name's Ahmad. Like I said, to just have him, we'll redo a weekly consult. And really, I brought him on to help me with my podcast because I couldn't figure out how to get to iTunes. And my husband's really good at helping me find people to outsource. So he's really good at saying like, hey, look here to outsource these things, but really my Upworks consultant has been tremendous.
Upworks pretty fantastic, isn't it? Yes, that whole, when I was really surprised when I first started this podcast, because that's 4 or 5 years ago now, and I remember thinking I would just put it in iTunes, but it doesn't work quite like that. You've got to go through a distributor who puts it to other things, and then there's all kinds of rules about how it goes into iTunes. It's more complex than one might imagine.
Yes.
Okay, Candice, how do you get feedback? We all need to know how we're going. Where do you look for feedback?
So I try to understand, or I try to listen to what people are and they're not understanding, if that makes sense.
Perfect.
Where they are, where I'm losing them. Because a lot of times before, of course, I put my videos out, I'll tell my kids like, hey, watch this video, or I tell my husband, hey, watch this video, and he's like, I didn't understand this one part, and so it's been really other business owners. And it's really funny. I went to talk to my daughter's school. We had a career day. And I was like, if I can talk to these and simplify it enough to talk to these 5th graders, then I'll be able to explain to other people. So I try to gauge where I'm losing people. And that's been some trial and error. So
that's a wonderful way to, I love that, if you can explain it to them. And the other lovely thing about a presentation to them would be they would ask terrific questions, because they're often not as inhibited as people, in that unconscious incompetence. We don't like to look silly, do we? We don't like to look incompetent. Yeah, so the sorts of questions those young people would have asked certainly would be helpful.
Yes.
Fantastic. Candice, 3 characteristics that make you successful in business.
So I'm really stubborn. I just won't give up.
Love that.
Yeah, once I decide I'm going to do something, I have to figure out a way to do it. So it's the stubbornness that I think I'm pretty friendly. I like talking to people. I can talk to a wall. So I think approaching people is not scary. It's not scary for me. And I would like to think that I am coachable, and I am open to, again, the constructive criticism, and where do I need to improve in certain areas, or what do I need to focus on?
That's fantastic. Okay, so as we bring this to a close, what would you say to someone who wants to start their own business? And I know you do deal with people like this every day. So what is that message that you have for people? You've indicated, just start with what you have, and, don't get caught up in having to have everything just right. But what is that key message to people?
Just to not give up. I think there really has to be a high level of self-motivation, because if you cannot find that motivation, you are going to give up when you realize it's a little harder than you thought, so don't give up. And I think the other thing I really love, because I tell people this when I talk to them, especially when they're starting out a business, is to be excited about their business. And I think a lot of people start out their business, and I know I did it myself, because people don't know what a Feng Shui consultant does, what a Feng Shui practitioner, what do they do? And I was actually so very shy, I think, to talk about it, because I thought, nobody's going to know what this is. But at the same time, I thought, I have to be able to explain it, right? So I think people try and keep it to themselves at first. They're like, they don't want the criticism from the family. You want to start a business, and for them to just really be excited to be proud of, to say it out loud, to be ready to explain to people what they're doing and, how they're doing it. And so really just to be excited and not try to hold back when they're talking about their business. People can discourage, we know how that goes sometimes, but just don't let it bother you.
Yeah. And would you say to that to maybe go find people that don't know so much about you? So that, when you say I'm a Feng Shui consultant, that people go, but aren't you a hairstylist? I thought you were a hairstylist. So whereas somebody who's brand new and you say I'm a Feng Shui consultant and they go, oh, wow, tell me more about that. So it's that getting the balance between getting the support from your family and going out and finding people who don't actually know very much about you.
That makes a good point. I kind of didn't touch on is for you to network, to find those groups. There's, for us ladies, there's like ladies in business groups and even online, if you don't want to get out, if you don't want to, physically go, if it makes you nervous, you can always join. There's some really great groups like on Facebook or, and you could join these groups and be able to start, kind of talking to people in these groups. So
yeah, we're so
there's all
lucky.
kinds of ways to network.
We're very lucky these days to have, the world at our fingertips, which is my last question. And I thought I had asked you my last question, but can you work with people everywhere in the world?
Yes. So I can do remote consultations.
Okay. So anyone listening who has a business or is thinking about getting set up in business, even just your home office, how to set that up for the best Feng Shui for that. Candice is your person. So there we go. Thank you so much for your time, Candice.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to another terrific business startup story. What are your standout moments? For me, I just loved when she said if she could explain this to fifth graders and they would be able to understand, then she knew she was on track. It's funny when I asked her if things had been tough and she said, oh no, it's all rainbows. No, just kidding. It's been tough for Candice and I appreciate her honesty about getting discouraged and how she gets back on track by listening to motivational people. And how many of us do this? I know I certainly do, and in fact have over the last couple of years. In fact, we also like to think this podcast helps to provide motivation as well as providing information. For everyone listening, it's important for you to believe that whatever you're dreaming about can become real. As Candice says, while it might take longer than you expected, get started with what you have. Make it easy to always know about the latest episodes of this podcast by subscribing if you have not already done so. And we would love you to leave a review if you're finding them interesting. That's another episode from me. When we pursue business and entrepreneurship based on core values and the deepest integrity, and at the same time build a financially successful business, we live richer, fuller lives. As I always like to ask, what action are you inspired to take today? Till the next time, thanks for listening.